Hello and welcome to the morning sports briefing here on the Saturday, the 16th of May. Yes, coming to you live at 7 a.m. every morning on New Zealand Sports Radio. Now, sorry if you thought it was 8 a.m. this morning, slight admin issue there as I set up the call at the wrong time. In news today, we have toothpaste leads to isolation, Six Nations calendar move muted, the 2020 NRL draw announced, and racing in major restructure. Kicking off with that football news then, and overnight we had a game in the Belarusian League, just the one game between Torpedo and Gorodeya, and Torpedo came out on top 3-1. Yep, Steve from the Deep South will have bragging rights over Steve from the Far North. That sees Gorodeya down in 11th place now. But considering they were bottom of the league when Stephen started supporting them, that's still safe from relegation, whereas Torpedo go top of the table. Moving on to other news over in Germany, Augsburg's boss Heiko Herrlich broke quarantine rules. He went out the hotel to go buy himself some toothpaste. But that is he puts his hand up and said, "Look, even though I had no toothpaste, I shouldn't have done it." And he has now been put in self-isolation, so he's going to miss training and also the game against Wolfsburg this Saturday. Over in the UK, and some sad news there, where a player has been broken into by armed robbers and had items stolen from him. This time it was Tottenham Hotspur midfielder Dele Alli, who was robbed at knife point in his home. This follows a series of other high-profile burglaries. Tottenham defender Jan Vonsungen was robbed in March, and then there was a attempted carjacking of Arsenal duo Mesut Ozil and Sead Kolinazic in July last year. Security experts say it's just a matter of time before somebody gets killed in one of these, and that players really need to be aware of the security measures they have, not only around the house, but also what they post on social media, as that's the first place that these robbers do check out to see A, what they can steal, and B, also what they can learn about the players' homes. So let's hope that that doesn't happen. But I say, yeah, some concerns over in the UK for players over there. And now I'm going to hand you over to Stephen, who's going to take us through the birthdays this morning.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everybody. Well, it's the start of the weekend, but today it's also somebody's birthday. And in birthdays today, a thorn in the side of the 1981 touring Springboks, a Northern Districts Cricket International, and finally a Mulu man through and through. Stephen Brian Gordon, born this day, the 16th of May, 1967, is a former New Zealand rugby union player. A lock, Gordon represented Waikato and Wellington at provincial level, and the Chiefs and Highlanders in Super Rugby. He was a member of the New Zealand national side, the All Blacks, between 1989 to 1993, and played 19 matches for the team, including 2 internationals. The man known as Stevie G turns 53 today, all-round good bugger, and a man that we run into every now and again at Waikato Stadium, doing the commentary as the analysis. Staying and a man who represents in that Hamilton area, Matthew Norman Hart, born this day, 16th of May, 1972, is a former New Zealand cricketer. Hart, a left-arm orthodox spinner, played in 14 tests between 1994 and 1996, claiming 29 wickets, including 1 5-wicket haul against South Africa. Hart, who turns 48 today, appeared in 13 ODIs, claiming 13 wickets, including a then record haul by a New Zealander in 1-day internationals, claiming 5 for 22 against the West Indies in 1994. And finally, Frank Shelford, born this day, 16th of May, 1955, is a former New Zealand rugby union player. a flanker. Shelford represented Bay of Plenty and Hawke's Bay at provincial level, and was a member of the New Zealand national side, the All Blacks, from 1981 to 1985. He played 22 matches for the All Blacks, including 4 internationals. Of Whakatohea descent, Shelford played for New Zealand Māori, captaining the side against Tonga in 1983. Shelford, who turned 65 today, won the Tom French Memorial Cup for Māori Player of the Year in 1981. Now, just a couple of footnotes. Frank Shelford played so brilliantly for the New Zealand Māori against the touring South African Springboks in 1981 in Napier, in what turned out to be a controversial 12-all draw, that he was called into the All Blacks for the third and decisive test at Eden Park, which the All Blacks went on to win and clinch the series. Now, Shelford is the uncle of Wayne Buck Shelford, a pretty amazing player, and be a guy that would be quite interesting if we can get him on the show, Paul. But happy birthday to all three, regardless.
Happy birthday to them, and absolutely, if they would like to, if anyone knows the Shelfords and would. And if they would like to come on the long talks for a chat, then we'd most definitely welcome them with open arms, or social distance, open arms, obviously. In these times, moving on to rugby news, and rugby players, Super Rugby players are being asked to take extra measures to maintain themselves. So they're asking to stay out of public places, and the teams are operating in a strict bubble. To avoid interaction, even with the front office staff in those organisations. The players will be flying in and out the day of the games, going straight to the grounds from the airport and then straight back to the airport again, to restrict the number of people that they have to interact with and their chances of catching any diseases. And the teams return to on-field training on Monday, and they're still finalising some of that this week. So yes, not the strict, as in you may not go to places, but definitely advice and asking players to be sensible appears to be the way that the Super Rugby franchises are going. Officially, the July test window has been postponed by World Rugby, and the All Blacks came out and announced that they had postponed their games against Wales and Scotland. This was going to be the first time Scotland had played a game against the All Blacks in New Zealand since the year 2000. So clearly, we wonder how long it is before we see Scotland back on these shores. The only other time we saw them here was at the Rugby World Cup. The Six Nations and have apparently are open to moving the window when it happens. So currently, the Six Nations is scheduled for February to March, and they are open to the idea of moving it to March to April. Wow, big change there, folks. There is apparently the Southern Hemisphere would also look at moving the Rugby Championship to the same window, and then our mid-year test, the July test, would move to October. So people who said, look, we have this blank piece of paper for organising the season, it's clearly shown that that's not the case with the Six Nations basically saying moving by just a solitary month. Shows you that basically this was a lot of the pieces were already there, and we don't have a blank slate to try and recreate a sustainable game. Down in Taranaki, they have announced that that their financial issues. Now, Taranaki were in one of the more difficult places coming into COVID-19 due to their stadium having both the main stands closed due to earthquake risks, and hence they were already financially not in a good place. This means that they're doing a review with all staff at the moment. They won't comment yet, or until that review is over, as to how many redundancies that will lead to. I think with New Zealand Rugby having discussions with up to 50% of their staff expected to have to be made redundant, with Super Rugby franchises also, well, not all of them, but some of them announcing redundancies. You've got to say that I don't think Taranaki will be the only rugby province that has to announce redundancies and reviews of their finances. That's up to date with the rugby news. I'm going to hand you back over to Stephen, who'll talk through the league update.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Well, it's finally come. The NRL has released the first two rounds of its revised 2020 season draw, with the Warriors set to restart their campaign against the Dragons. The Warriors will face the Dragons on Saturday, the 30th of May, followed by the Panthers on June 5th, as they look to bounce back from two straight losses before the suspension of the league. ARL Commission Chairman Peter V'landys originally set a deadline for the entire draw to be finalised on Friday, but delicate broadcast negotiations have dragged on. The rest of the schedule are set to be made public next week. It was revealed before the announcement that the NRL planned to use Bankwest Stadium and Netstrata Jubilee Stadium, formerly Wynn Stadium in Cogra, as its two home grounds for every Sydney club, as well as Newcastle and Canberra. The Gold Coast Titans will be forced to play their home games at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, while the Broncos, Melbourne Storm and North Queensland will play at their regular home grounds. Meanwhile, the 2020 State of Origin series is reportedly set for a shake-up as an end-of-season showpiece that will be staged over 3 consecutive weeks beginning November 4. According to the Daily Telegraph, the NRL is expected to confirm the series will be played on 3 consecutive Wednesday nights, November the 4th, 11th and 18th. And just looking at that draw, which obviously rounds starts on May 28th. First game up is the Broncos versus the Eels. Friday 29th is the Cowboys Titans, Roosters Rabbitohs. May 30th, well, of course, it's the game we're interested on. 5 p.m. in the afternoon is the Warriors Dragons. Then it's the Sharks Tigers, Storms Raiders, and through to Sunday 31st, it's the Panthers v Knights, Sea Eagles v Bulldogs, and then we move into round 4 matches on which start on the Thursday, the 4th of June, and the one that we're interested from this side of the ditch is the Panthers v Warriors, 8 p.m. and that is Friday the 5th of June, and that's pretty much wraps up any sort of league news today. It's getting pretty exciting, I've got to say. Only a couple of weeks or less than a couple of weeks to go. Can't wait for it to start. And that's league news for today. Hope everybody has a great day. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Yes, and with UFC kicking off, or fighting off last weekend, with the Bundesliga kicking off this weekend, yes, we are starting to see the return of sport, and that is very, very exciting. The NBL, which is the New Zealand Basketball League, or the National Basketball League here in New Zealand, have announced a new team. The Southern Huskies, who used to be based in Tasmania and then dropped out due to logistical issues at the end of last season, are going to be resurrecting themselves as the Auckland Huskies. They were due to join next season, but because of the way this season is set up, with just a 5 to 6 week season with all the games in one place, they haven't had to worry about organising a venue, a draft to disperse the majority of talent who are all centrally contracted. So again, finding their roster hasn't been that difficult, but it's made it all much easier for the Huskies to stand up a season early. That will be heartening for the NBL, as 2 teams, Wellington and I've gone blank, I think it was Southland, have said they won't take part in this season. So an extra team there is very good. We're expecting news early next week for the actual what's what I'm looking for more news on the season and how it's all going to, A, which teams are going to be in it, and B, the schedule as well. So really looking forward to that on Monday. Over in racing, the Avondale is one of 14 race venues that are facing an uncertain future, as the number of venues that will be hosting thoroughbred racing has been drastically reduced. Similarly, the same sort of thing has happened in the trots as well, or harness racing, that they have drastically reduced the number of race courses that they're racing on. For many years, it has been review after review has said there are just too many venues in racing to have a sustainable business. But obviously, whilst everyone agrees that, people don't want their own racecourse being shut down or not being used. And so a lot that has meant it's been very difficult to actually implement that reduction. COVID-19 clearly has sped that up. And now the servicing looks 60 venues was just way too many, and it's given the I guess the boost to actually make that change. So that's good, because obviously whilst the number of races will drop from 259 to 246, so not a big drop. They'll be using a lot less venues, and the venues will just get used a lot more, which makes a lot more sense. So, for example, in horse racing, in horse racing, they're down to just 16 venues from 31, so nearly half there. Over in the USA, 2 NFL players have had arrest warrants put out for them for armed robbery. And Dean Baker and Quinton Dunbar of the Giants and Seattle Seahawks are said to have robbed guests at a party. There were cards and computer games going on, and then Durinaire pulled out a gun and robbed the other members of the party at gunpoint. There was also a third accomplice wearing a red mask, but that person has not been identified yet. They took around $12,000 in cash and watches worth up to $25,000 before making a getaway in a Mercedes, a Lamborghini, and a BMW. The police are trying to get these people to hand themselves in talks with the NFL and also a lawyer for one of the players. But so far, the NFL has not commented on this. Unsurprisingly, both players are cornerbacks for their respective teams, and we'll have to wait and see how that one pans out. But armed robbery, got to say, that's taking sort of bad behaviour to an absolutely to a new level, and something we definitely do not want to be seeing. Thank you very much, Stephen. Folks, you have started the day the best way, up to date with all the important sports news. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like the Facebook page or subscribe to the podcast. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or your favourite podcatchers. And we'll be back here tomorrow at 7 a.m. Sorry about the little admin error there about the scheduling, pardon me, but it will be 7 a.m. We'll be back here tomorrow with your morning sports briefing.